Hey there, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to do another Cochrane Alberta real estate market update, and we're going to dive into what happened here in Cochrane Alberta in the month of November. First up, let's talk about inventory. As it sits this morning, we have about 278 active listings, and that does not include any of the conditionally sold listings here in Cochrane. And that's about 74% up from last year. With that, we did have about 122 new listings, so that was up about 22% over last year. And then that closes out, leaving us with about a month's of supply of about 4.5 months, given that we've been only selling about 66 to 70 units per month. Now, while sales were up 1.5% over last November, they still are down slightly year to date. And so that is attributing to those slightly higher inventory numbers. And we'll touch on this a little bit later. It's having an effect on the detached benchmark price as well. When it comes to the inventory, an overall theme that I've been talking about in the last few videos has been new construction listings versus non-new construction listings. And depending on you as a buyer, you may be looking for a tighter time frame than what new construction listings can offer you. And so it really reduces the amount of available listings you have to see. So the true inventory numbers for your situation may be totally different. For this month, like I said, we have about 278 active listings as we sit this morning when I recorded this video, which is December 3rd. And right now we have 51% new listings here in Cochrane. So what I mean by that is 51% of the listings are new construction homes here in Cochrane, Alberta. Obviously, we have a handful of new communities here that are still building and building quite frequently. And just yesterday on one of my client searches, I got like 8 emails with new listings, and they are all new construction. And so again, we're going to see that here where new construction, as they get into production, they start putting multiples of those homes up on MLS, kind of diluting that inventory number here in Cochrane, Alberta. In the detached market, we're sitting at about 80 out of 160 listings, so right at 50%. And in the townhouse market, again, we're at 51%. But the big one is duplexes. Now, duplexes have been very popular here in Cochrane, Alberta in the new communities because they can take those narrower lots, put a slightly larger home on it because they're not giving up a side yard on either side of the property. They're only giving up the one. And with that, they can get a little bit larger of a house than a single detached. You might get a couple extra 100 square feet. And then with staying under that $600,000 price range, it still fits a budget of a lot of buyers here in Cochrane, Alberta. And so with that, it's not surprising that the duplexes again are the highest percentage of new construction listings at about 63%. Now, that high level of new construction duplexes is going to have a huge effect on the next stat I talk about, which is the benchmark price. And now the total benchmark price, obviously across all properties, Cochrane has done it again, despite the higher inventories, despite the large months of supply, and the lower year-to-date sales. The benchmark price actually rose 1% from last year. And so that's a huge comparison when you factor in Airdrie being down 5% in its benchmark price, Calgary being down 4.5%, and Okotoks being down 4%, meaning Cochrane is 5 to 6% higher in its benchmark price in terms of growth than those other centers. So again, while Cochrane is in a slower market, everywhere it is, and it's more of a balanced market, Cochrane is still doing a really good job of bucking those price corrections, especially in the benchmark price. And one of the main drivers of that, like I just alluded to, is the new construction duplexes. Because those new construction duplexes are so prevalent on the market, and because their price is quite high compared to the resale value duplexes, it is really helping that benchmark price because those duplexes are selling for almost $600,000 for a lot of them, and that is really helping bring up that benchmark price. Okay, moving into the detached benchmark price now. This is where things kind of really settle in and Cochrane actually shows signs of being in a more balanced market. The detached price in Cochrane did drop about 0.7% year over year. So we're seeing a slight pullback in pricing. Honestly, it seems like, oh no, a pullback in pricing kind of seems like a big deal. But if you compare that again to Airdrie and Okotoks being down 4% and Calgary being down 2%, Cochrane again is performing better year over year in this balanced market. So as a seller or as a buyer wondering if your property value is going to hold in Cochrane with the balanced conditions, the evidence for the past few months has shown that it will. And I think Cochrane is a very safe place to buy into right now. Now, how all of this actually affects what happens to you as a buyer or you as a seller when you're going to list your home or buy a home here currently in Cochrane. The days on the market last month were sitting at about 64 days. So a little bit longer than the previous video that was in the 50s. And so again, you're having some time. Now, this is barring the really well-priced listing that shows really well on the corner lot. Like obviously there's going to be anomalies and outliers where a home is going to go up and down in a week. However, the average days on market right now is 64. So you do have a bit more time to choose as a buyer. And then as a seller, you really have to be aware of who you're competing against. It is not the prior solds, like I've alluded to. It is what is currently on the market. And I really encourage you to get your pricing right. And then you can be on the better side of that average versus on the wrong side of the average. In terms of list price to close price ratios, Cochrane has been sitting steady for the last few months, right around 98%. So there is some room for negotiation, which obviously, if we just rewind back even a year ago, that really wasn't the case. Things were still really tight. And so it's nice for buyers to finally see some opening signs of negotiation coming through. Now, obviously, here in December, we have a rate announcement from the Bank of Canada. We have another one coming in January. And then going into the new year, we actually have some new mortgage rules that will mainly affect investors and how they can apply for different properties. That pullback or that tightening on lending to investors may actually create, again, some more price corrections in terms of what buyers can enter the market. It may remove a section of buyers. So that'll be really interesting to see how Cochrane Alberta's market handles that change in mortgage rules coming January 1st. We can talk more about that in a future video. As for the market update, I hope you found this little breakdown helpful. If you have questions about your specific real estate needs here in the Cochrane Alberta market, I'd be happy to have a conversation with you and see if I can provide any insight into the Cochrane market. And as always, I will catch you in the next one.